Going to try again. So, yes, next part, and hopefully the lip syncing's not too bad, and I have not dropped the camera because this is the one on the computer now. So where we were up to is I was going to say this book is made up of journal entries and letters, and also some hindsight commentary to give it some context as to what was going on. And okay, so I was not like biblical Joseph in ancient Egypt. I was not that noble, nor was I like Corrie ten Boom from The Hiding Place, ever forgiving the guards in a Nazi prison. I did get stinky attitudes. I did lose my cool sometimes and didn't act very Christian at times. I was living among some very nasty, small-minded, unsavoury, dishonest characters. And then there were the prisoners. So there's a misconception that non-violent offenders are kept away from the bad offenders. It's not true. Apart from those in S10, which is a secure block referred to as protection, or as some of the prisoners called the boneyard, that accommodated ex-police officers, child sex offenders, or abusers. Sorry, not so much sex offenders being women, but people in that category that other prisoners would really like to get their hands on and hurt, and people who just had enemies anyway that were already there. So the drug world is full of dramas and so on. Not that I know a heck of a lot about that, although I know a lot more now after being in there. Okay, so everyone is lumped in together until they're classified. And this can take months, although it's not supposed to. But we're not talking about a customer service industry. So, you'll wait your turn. When they're good and ready, they'll sort things out. So I lived with murderers, thieves, drug addicts, prostitutes, and more. But I often felt the presence of God with me. I did. I says where sin abounds, grace abounds more so. And I really did feel it at times, sometimes more than others. So I was not alone, and I believed, because I had to, that my journey would result in a greater purpose. And for those who've heard me minister, because as you know, on Facebook, I've got both Christian and non-Christian friends, and I do secular business speaking as well as ministry for faith groups. And my life is Romans 8:28, that God makes all things work together for our good. Doesn't happen automatically though, so I've learned about working with him to make that happen. So now I use my story to impart life, purpose, and hope into the lives of others, because you matter. You matter. Prison is a horrible experience, regardless of whether your prison is made of bricks and razor wire or made of your attitude and life circumstances. You don't have to go to prison to feel trapped. True freedom is a precious thing. It happens up here. I just ask that you keep an open mind as you journey with me. Perhaps you will gain strength and maybe some faith of your own. If you buy the book, the paperback or the PDF, the spelling is and the language is in Australian, except for the word jail, which I've spelt Jail instead of Gaol, because it's just more common now. And jail and prison are different. Jail and prison are the same in Australia. They're interchangeable words, whereas in America, prison is much more serious than jail. So we will go here, you'll go to the lockup, which is where under the courthouse until they send you out. And we have minimum security places and maximum, but it's all jail, it's all prison. So yeah. And there's a glossary for my American friends or Europeans who don't get the Australian lingo. Right, so court. January 21 to 22, 2009, so it went over 2 days. I've watched countless courtroom dramas and even performed jury duty, but nothing prepared me for sitting in the dock as a criminal. I thought this must be what Judgment Day will feel like for those who don't know Christ. Yep, that's what I thought. I was dressed in my smart navy pantsuit and cream blouse, returned to me ruined months later. My hair was freshly blonded. I was blonde back then, and that was a strategic error, in a shade that just didn't quite work for me. I should look on here and find a photo for that. I'll get one eventually. Now, here's a tip. Never, ever get your hair done by an unfamiliar hairdresser before an important event. Not good. And don't try out a new recipe when you've got important people coming over. But the hair thing, don't do it. So an hour earlier, my parents, my lawyer, barrister, and I had been sitting in the ground floor coffee shop like respectable people, waiting until it was time to go up. I was sick with nerves, so I went to the bathroom to calm myself and discovered my pants zipper was broken. Great. In addition, I was sunburned in an embarrassing way. Previous weekend, my husband Justin had whisked our family away to his sister's place at Hervey Bay and to enjoy the beach, and I had borrowed a swimming costume from my sister-in-law, and it was cut differently to the one I'm used to, so a part of my inner cleavage was exposed, not too much but enough, different shape. And as the extended family frolicked in the water, safety mum, positioned so the children are between me and the sand. So sand, children, me, looking that way for the afternoon. Sun coming down from one side, the afternoon. So the result was was just one, not an even two, but one sunburnt bosom. And it was starting to itch. I was not exactly filled with self-confidence. All I needed to top it off was for a bird to poop on me. Give it time. The court is a frightening process, even if you do trust that the judgment will be part of God's plan and not man's. I knew I would go to prison. I knew. I'd felt it in my prayer time. The previous week, I had watched Corrie ten Boom's The Hiding Place, a movie about a woman imprisoned for hiding Jews, and Roots, the slavery miniseries, the original one, which, I saw when I was like a child, and 30 years later, there it is. Go figure. And I felt like the Lord was saying to me, yes, you will go in, but I will be with you. And in fact, every time I'd had prayer for this, for the years leading up to it, because it took years, every time the words that would come back were, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Yeah, God's okay and our okay are not always the same. Right. So my lawyer advised I would likely be given 3 to 4 months, 6 at the worst. And the prosecutor was to tell me later that she thought I would go home with a fully suspended sentence because I hadn't stolen anything. I sat trembling and pale in the dock while the prosecution presented its case. I looked at the impassive face of the officer standing next to me. I'm so scared, I whispered to him. Was I looking for reassurance? Probably. Now, he spoke gently and poured me a cup of water. And I wondered if the act were an unexpected kindness or perhaps a behaviour management strategy. I was prepared for the lead prosecutor to be ruthless, but in fact she was quite generous and mentioned many good things I had contributed to their case against the trader who had stolen everyone's money. She recommended a head sentence of 12 to 24 months. A head sentence is a maximum you could serve. When you plead guilty, you will usually serve 1/3 before and the remainder is suspended, or you can apply for parole. And I pled guilty because I was. We'll get to that. Suddenly, the judge interrupted and scolded the prosecutor for recommending such a light sentence. He said she should be asking for 3 or 4 years. Oh. I felt the blood drain from my face and heard the sharp intake of my mother's breath behind me. This is not the way I had expected it to go, I thought. I had assumed that a judge hands down a sentence somewhere in between the defence and the prosecutor's recommendations. I'm in real trouble. It wasn't the first time my assumptions had been overly optimistic. I was being carried away by a force I had no control over. It was terrifying. You ever had legal stuff happen? It takes a long time, it's inexorable, and it's really frightening. My penalty would be reduced if I were able to pay money back to the 2 people whose funds I'd used to pay investors, but I had no means to do so. To put you in the picture, I'll summarise this. I was working for a fellow who ran a managed fund, and it was an investment scheme that was unregistered, and then he got it registered to be a managed fund. So we thought, great, the government thinks he's fine. And so I was like a rep for that fund. And what I didn't know was that he was stealing investors' money, and it's what's called a Ponzi scheme, which is where you think the return you're receiving each time you get a payment is your profit, but really they're giving you someone else's money instead as they get more money in, and it's like a circle of money, and it just implodes because it's not sustainable. And that's what had happened, but I didn't know. And basically, he stopped paying investors, including us. We were investors too. And 3 months of people asking me where their money is and when they're going to get paid, and I just caved. I couldn't take it anymore, and I said to him, there's money here, can I use this to pay them? They need to be paid. And he went, yeah, do that. So I used funds that were meant for something else. I can't dress it up, misused it, and paid people a return that I shouldn't have, and that was a breach of the Corporations Act. Didn't steal it, but that's not the point. I'm not going to labour on it. I've paid a big price for it, so if you want to beat me up for it, go do it on someone else's blog, because it's all on Google, and that's fine. But the thing is, I own that. I own that. If I could go back in time and change it, I'm not one of these people who says, no regrets. I got a big one. If I could go back in time and change it, I would. I would just go, look, sorry, can't help you, and look after me. But that's not how it happened. Can't change it. So the train pulled out of the station and I was stuck on it. So there we are. And that's just how it is. And you might have things in your life that if you could go back, you would change it. I feel you. I really do. But the important thing is, you've got to look forward. You've got to look at, own your stuff. Don't blame someone else. Own your stuff. Learn from it and move on, and offer what you have in terms of what you've learned, if that's appropriate to do. Apologise where you need to. Repent where you need to. But don't keep beating yourself up over it. That's called condemnation, and that will keep you bound and keep you feeling unworthy. And it took me a long time to get over that feeling of being unworthy and feeling tainted. And, guilt is just a crippling thing. Conviction, your conscience being pricked is a good thing, but beating yourself up for years and years doesn't help anybody. And you've got to keep moving on and give the same grace and forgiveness that you give others to yourself. And if people can't handle that, they're too hurt for it, I get that. They can't do it, that's fine. But some people, you might just need to move to the outer circle of your life, because it's not healthy for you to just keep hearing their pain and their hurt. They're the ones who have to go to God with that and deal with their stuff. You can't do it for them. You can't repent on behalf of someone else. You can only do your own stuff. So I hope that helps somebody with that. It's icky, but it's just how it is. If someone's got a better insight, great, but that's where I'm at with that. Okay, so we can skip a lot of the details here. Blah, blah, blah. So what I ended up getting was a head sentence of 2.5 years to be suspended after 8 months. So I was to go from January to September of 2009, the best part of a year. I would be away from my family. And amazingly, I felt relief. I had a self-preservation mechanism that immediately looks for the upside, especially when the downside is just too ugly. And it was less than 12 months of actually being in there, and I thought I can do less than 12 months. I had no idea what I could do. No idea, but I just thought that. Some people call it faith, other people call it denial, maybe. I'm not sure what it was in that moment, but it's why I believed this guy's lies for it's for so long. But that choice of looking on the upside would serve me well in the coming months. As I was led from the dock, I turned to my family and said quickly, "It's not so bad. It's less than a year. I'll be okay." I had no idea if I'd be okay. The judge's comments are a matter of public record. By law, I'm not permitted to publicly give an opinion on the actual sentence. I don't have an opinion anymore because I believe God will use anyone to accomplish his purposes, no matter what their prejudices or motives, if any. The judge was God's instrument, whether he knew it or not, an instrument in the hands of my God. He had the honour of helping extend the gospel. Many of the women I was privileged to share with would not have listened to me in prison if I had not been one of them. So what the enemy tried to do to silence me actually gave me a platform. I actually have a workshop called Getting Revenge on the Devil. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun because you can make him scared to touch you again. Make him scared that how you react to what he does. Make him wish that he never tried. So God had a plan for me that involved 8 months of incarceration. I had to think that way, or else I might become bitter, which would have rendered me useless and my calling unfulfilled. So I'll stop there. That's where it is. We're going next time. It will be what happened when I went down to the cells. All right, and I will endeavour to do that tomorrow, and hopefully the recording is not too bad. All right, see ya.